Hey, brother, you should be live. Can you hear me?
Hey, what's up, man?
Nothing much. Hey, welcome back, man. I appreciate you calling in again.
Yes, sir.
What kind of coffee? I gotta ask.
I just got the Dunkin' Donuts Keurig K-Cups, you know.
Oh, yeah, that sounds good.
Half and half and sugar.
Oh, nothing wrong with that, man. I've got the dark French roast. That's my go-to.
Yeah, I'm plain, bro. Just straight up, just regular coffee.
No worries, man. I got the dark French roast with like one or two sweeteners. Other than that, it's straight black. So what you got for us today?
Not much. I guess like my biggest thing with like the whole Biden administration right now with immigration is that he is beginning to like his administration is beginning to enact the same policy, like similar
The time
policies
for
that
silence
Trump
is
has.
over. Okay.
And he's not getting as criticized for enacting those same policies as Trump was. Their concentration camps, they're terrible, and now it seems like, oh no, they're just holding facilities. You know, when, you know, it's basically the same thing.
So one of the key differences to me, but I'm not going to disagree with you too strongly on this point. One of the key differences to me is under the Trump administration, specifically from Attorney General Sessions at the time, the policy was to separate families, right? If you cross the border seeking asylum or as a refugee or as an immigrant of any kind, per their view, you were breaking the law and you would be prosecuted for that. And as a result of it, we would have to take your kids from you and put them in a separate facility and hold them separately. Okay. My understanding is that is not the Biden administration's policy. These kids that are being held in these different facilities are crossing without any parents with them in the first place. So, like I said, I don't disagree with you entirely. I do think that, you know, there needs to be full disclosure. We need to have cameras and reporters and everything else in these holding facilities, camps, whatever you want to refer to them as. But the difference is in the policy and how you're attacking it.
Yeah, I mean, there definitely is a difference in that. See, I have mixed feelings about the way Trump actually did separate families. Because on one hand, you could have human traffickers coming in with children and disguising them as a family, you know? So I think that was their major motive in doing so. Now, were there definitely innocent families that were separated for not good reasons? Yes. But at the same time, you know what I mean? It's kind of like a double-edged sword.
Well, see, there I disagree. I think you could. So even if I agreed that there was a concern about people trying to traffic children into the United States, okay, let's say that was some major concern, right? I don't think the answer is to just poof, we're going to separate you immediately before we determine whether you're a trafficker or whether you're a parent, right? I mean, we could keep everybody in the same facility and, you know, okay, we're going to interview you separately or whatever the case is, right, to figure out if we think you're at risk for being trafficked. It's not, oh, well, you know, hey, we see y'all all crossing the border together. We're going to send, you know, Miss Susie 5-year-old, 500 miles this way and your parents 200 miles this way while we sort it out. I mean, that just seems ridiculous to me.
Yeah, no, I understand. But then if you do have them in the same facility, and they are human trafficking victims,
mm-hmm.
the children might not, like during their interrogation or interview or whatever you want to call it, the children might not be willing to open up about that and be like, oh, he's not my dad, because they know they're in the same facility. And then you have that intimidation factor.
I could see that to a certain extent, but I really think it's a stretch, man. I mean, you're basically saying that, you know, I don't know, 500 feet of separation isn't enough, so we need 500 miles of separation, and then the kid's going to believe that their parents are 500 miles away?
I don't agree with the 500 miles, but like if they were in, like, say there's basically the size of a army base, right? In the United States. Not, and they were on opposite sides of the army base.
Okay.
Right? I feel like that could be reasonable, you know? So while I do find like 500 miles away or 200, whatever it is a bit unacceptable in my opinion. But if we're in the same facility, then you could make a reasonable argument why they should be separated, at least for the time being.
Define the time being, because to me, okay, I could see as a compromise here, right? We're going to bring in this family that crossed the border illegally or seeking asylum or whatever terminology you want to use, because I don't want to argue that part with you and distract from where we're at, right? We could do that, and then we bring them into, you know, this military base or this processing facility, okay? And then, you know, the kids go over here and the parents go over here, and we interview them both separately, okay? And they both say, no, that's my dad, that's, you know, that's my son, whatever the case is, right? How long do you think I'm supposed to keep these people separated that are both saying they're a family unit before we can believe them, I guess?
I guess I would define like my reasonable amount of time as in like no more than 24 hours.
Okay.
You know, like not even like the full 3 days that it takes, that it's supposed to take.
Right.
You know, I would say like no more than 24 hours.
Okay. So you would be even more strict than the current policy, which is, I think you would agree, not remotely what Trump and Sessions were talking about doing, right?
Correct. So like Trump and Sessions were like full family separation, right?
Correct.
For the duration of the vetting process.
Even further than that, I understand. They were basically saying if you came over with, you know, children, you crossed the border illegally, we were going to, you know, prosecute you. And as long as that process took, then, you know, obviously while you're being prosecuted, you can't be, you know, you can't maintain your children, like your parental rights, right? Because you're going to be in prison or something to that extent. So therefore, we need a place to store the kids.
Yeah. So I guess I would be more lenient than that, but more strict than what the Biden admin is currently doing.
I don't see how the Biden...
In a way, just because... What's that?
I was going to say, it seems like you're being more lenient than even the Biden administration is being. I mean, you're closer to where I'm at.
What's the Biden administration policy exactly in regards to family separation for duration?
They're not separating families, but, you know, everybody goes through processing type of thing.
Yeah, so I guess like I'm okay with quote unquote family separation because there's a possibility that they're not all families for up to 24 hours.
Okay, so you would be basically all right with, you know, 24 hours to make sure the kids realize that they could be safe and they could tell the truth, right? And then, you know, if you say they're really your parents, you can go back to them type of thing. I don't even know that I would consider that like separation, right? I would consider that like extended interview time or something along those lines. But I can see where you're coming from. I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to that outright, at least not on its face.
Yeah, as long as it's enacted properly, which nothing the U.S. government does is, but, you know.
I disagree with that, but I understand where you're coming from. Hold on just a second. Saucy Doe, I feel that the far left is still criticizing Biden, but it's more or less centrist and left-leaning centrists that refuse to criticize Biden, at least from what I've seen or heard. I would tend to agree with that, Saucy Left. I think they do need to be more critical of Biden right now than they were, or than they currently are being, specifically related to this situation. All right, go ahead, Hardwoodensock. Sorry about that.
No, you're good, man. You know, but that's like my biggest issue right now with, you know, the media and the establishment Democrats, you know, that are even AOC that even came out and said that there is no crisis at the border when like the empirical numbers are literally just, you know, there's a crisis at the border, you know, and like there's no hiding that, you know?
No, I would tend to agree with you on that. I think the most charitable Because I tend to be charitable to both sides. Like, right, I think from our last conversation, you would agree that I try to make the strongest conservative argument that I'm aware of, right? And I'll try and like rephrase your argument so that I understand it. So the most charitable argument that I could make for this not being a crisis, which again, I disagree with, but the most charitable argument I could make would be that historically, right, you see a huge spike in immigration rates around this time of year from the southern border of the United States. I mean, I don't know if you saw the part with the graph, but I mean, you could literally go back over the graph for the last 20 years and you see a spike like every March, April, May, June, right? It's just a given, right? We're seeing a slightly larger spike this year than we typically see, right? But this seems to be a problem that while it's high right now, historically has declined back on its own. So like I said, that's the most charitable argument I can make for it. But the short version to me is you have a lot of kids that don't have parents at the border right now, and we're behind on processing them, and they need places to go after they're processed so they can get out of these camps. I think it's a crisis. I think it's a humanitarian crisis personally. But that's the most charitable argument I can make disagreeing with my position.
Yeah. No, I mean, like, I just find it, it's just frustrating when, throughout I guess in 2019, the numbers were pretty high.
Yes.
But during the majority of the Trump administration's time in office, the numbers were pretty low in comparison to like the Obama era policies.
Yeah, but illegal migration has typically been declining since I want to say Clinton. I mean, it's been going down year over year consistently when you look at illegal migration from Mexico. And to refer to Dejanic's point that Biden's probably going to finish Trump's wall, I think there's a whole lot easier, cheaper, more cost-effective methods to address migration or immigration than building a wall. I mean, I think that's asinine. And show me a 12-foot wall, I'll show you a 13-foot ladder, Yeah,
but there was actually a Daily Caller article stating that the Biden administration is actually considering restarting up the construction on the wall.
I saw something about that being released, but within like 24 hours, like Biden himself had come out and said, no, that was a misunderstanding, or no, y'all didn't understand what we were trying to say correctly, and that's not the case.
Okay, yeah, I didn't see the other article. I just saw that one.
No, it was about.
I was like,
Yeah, it was like 24 hours delayed, if I remember correctly.
Okay, but like even still, even if that was even talked about, like Trump has been demonized about this wall for 4 years. That and then if there is even like a hint of truth in that article, you know what I mean? Then like basically we shouldn't have criticized Trump. There's 4 years. No,
I disagree with that. I mean, you can go to a spitball session where, okay, like let's say I was trying to solve any particular problem and I just said, okay, everybody, I don't care how crazy the idea is, just throw out the idea, right? That doesn't mean that I'm advocating for that particular policy. Right? Somebody could have just been like, oh, well, let's, do this. Let's do that. Let's, keep building Trump's wall. Let's do this. Let's do that. Right? And it might not have been a serious policy consideration. On its face, I think the wall is just a terrible way to address immigration. It costs billions of dollars. You've got to build billions of dollars in infrastructure to get there. And walls just don't fucking work. Right? Pardon the language, but they don't,
No, you're good, man. But I mean, while in general, the walls don't they're not 100% effective. You know what I mean? And theoretically, it's not even technically a wall. You know what I mean? It's like bollard fencing.
Yeah.
But like one thing that the Trump administration was actually doing was targeting certain areas where they know that they have a bunch of illegal border crossings. You know, like it wasn't like a blanket from sea to shining sea wall like he originally proposed.
Right. That Mexico was going to pay for, right?
Yeah. No, like anyone who believes that Mexico is actually going to pay for that wall is just nuts. But like it wasn't this like grandiose wall. You know, it was specific areas which could technically which could alleviate the border patrol from having to cover the entire border instead of like crazy effectively, but it could funnel, you know what I mean, where the illegal immigrants are crossing, if that makes sense.
No, I understand what you're saying. I mean, at its basic core point, I guess I just see much easier ways to solve this potential issue, right? I mean, I don't understand. Okay, so we know migrant labor, you know, laborers that come up during agricultural season and then go back has been a thing for like forever in American history, right? Since America and Mexico existed as states, right? So why don't we just, okay, you come through here, you get your permit for, 6 months or however long the agricultural season is, right? We're going to charge your taxes on it, whatever it is, right? Here's your migrant ID number. You can come in, you can work for X amount of months, and then you can go back home, right? And then, okay, so and make that easy as shit to get, right? There's almost no qualifications you need to do this, right? Make it easy, okay? And then go to all the companies that hire migrant labor and say, okay, we're going to do spot checks, right? And if we find you hiring somebody who doesn't have this permit, we're just going to fine the shit out of you, like massively fine the shit out of you. So we take away the demand for illegal labor in the first place, right? And we've created a legal form for people to migrate across the border and migrate back south. I mean, I don't see why we need to build a wall when we can just catch it on the demand end, And Ricky, thanks for dropping by.
Yeah, but we kind of already have that with the H-2B program, though.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Why don't we just massively expand it and then regulate the hell out of it from the demand end, right? Because the businesses are the ones providing the demand. Why do I need to spend billions of dollars building a wall, right, when I can address it that way? Why do I need to spend billions of dollars building a wall when I can make it easier for somebody to get like temporary residency status in the United States? Again, I'm fine with vetting them, right? But then if I go audit a business and they hired a bunch of people illegally, I don't really care about the individual guy that's, here illegally. Why don't I prosecute the shit and fine the shit out of the business? Because if I get rid of the demand, right, and I provide a legal way for people to come here and do it legally, why is that a negative? I collect taxes on the people that are over here. They're contributing to the United States economy. I know where they're at. I know who they're working for, right? I made sure the business is paying taxes. I made sure the workers aren't being exploited by said businesses because they're on the books, right? And I'm closing all the demand for illegal activity.
Yes. I do agree with you in to an extent. So like I brought up the landscaping analogy earlier.
Sure.
Because like I'm a landscaper, you know what I mean? Like I work in that industry, and believe me, I would love for the H-2B program to be expanded. Yeah. Because I've worked with H-2B guys and they're amazing.
Gotcha.
Gotcha. The issue is with expanding the H-2B program is like a bunch of the illegal immigrants that do come in that are here to work end up in farmers' fields, right?
Yeah.
Like picking apples or whatever, and farmers cannot afford the H-2B labor prices.
Right. Which is why I said, I would be fine with some form of cheap, like workers permit type of thing, right? But you're still going to have to, pay a minimum wage and this sort of stuff. But if you need to hire illegal workers because they're cheaper, then oh well, tough shit. I'm sorry, I'm not encouraging illegal workers to come over here.
Of course, I mean, see, I understand that there's a place for the illegal immigrant to work, and that it's actually I would argue that it's needed in our society to an extent. For instance, you know, like I said, farmers' fields, right?
Yeah.
The farmers can't afford the wages required from the H-2B program, which, and if they were forced to pay them what the H-2B labor costs are, then basically our food prices would skyrocket, you know? And that's where I see that there is actually a necessary market for them, you know what I mean, without necessarily government control. Now, if these farmers get caught, you know, they obviously get in big trouble with the federal government.
So I don't know that the farmers get in so much trouble right now as the illegal immigrants, but I'll concede that, or not contest it rather. I don't know that our food prices would skyrocket if you just made some kind of seasonal permit program, right? With, you know, minimum wage is minimum wage or whatever the case may be across the state. But if I took your argument, then you should be more opposed to building a wall than even I am, right? And then to answer Dejanic's question from chat, what about Central American refugees that aren't seasonal illegal immigrants? That's one way to address just migrants, right? I would be in favor of an easier path to citizenship for the vast majority of people that want to immigrate here. And that's just me personally, right? I'm in favor of providing legal alternatives instead of and disincentivizing illegal alternatives.
For sure. No, I mean, I understand that. But I'm not for open borders either. You know,
well, I'm not for purely open borders, right? But if somebody wants to come over here and join this country and become a United States citizen, I don't see why I wouldn't encourage that. If somebody wants to...
basically, I get... What's up?
Oh, I was going to say, go ahead.
I'm trying to steelman your argument a little bit here.
Yeah, for sure.
If we go with your argument, right, with just like a worker's permit where we have to pay them the basic minimum wage.
Yeah.
Right. Basically what that would advocate, what that would do would be, it would take away the H-2B minimum required wages for, you know, the person, the individual.
No, this could be a separate program. So I'm not saying that I'm not touching H1 or H2 visas currently at all. I'm saying that there could be some kind of seasonal, you know, workers permit program that you could also implement, right? And then you could massively fine people who or companies that hired outside of that program.
Okay.
Yeah. So
I don't know. I'm just trying to think of.
For instance, right? Like if you do landscaping-ish, right? You know, landscaping stuff, right? So let's say that you had a landscape company, or let's say you had your landscape company and there was a landscape company in town that hired nothing but illegal immigrants, right? So your landscape company, just purely based off of wages, is going to be at a disadvantage to somebody who's already breaking the law. I think you and I would agree there, right? Okay. And there's an incentive for the company that's breaking the law to keep doing it, right? Because it can offer cheaper prices and it can, you know, undercut you and outsell your landscape stuff, right? And then there's an incentive for the illegal immigrants or the people that are immigrating here illegally to come work for that company, right? Because they have a very difficult currently path to citizenship. So their chance of, you know, it's going to take years for them to get citizenship in most cases to be able to work for your company, right? So what I'm saying is, why can't I give that guy a temporary worker's permit to come up here and do landscaping for 3 months, 6 months, whatever the case is, right? And then the company that doesn't hire from that pool or doesn't hire people that are here to work legally, right? I fine the shit out of them to the point where it's not profitable to do it the other way. You can't do it illegally, right? I want to give a legal alternative for seasonal workers would be my point.
Okay. Well, that thing kind of already exists. Some of my guys currently have work visas from Mexico, so they're allowed to come here for 9 months out of the year. So basically, they're here between March and November.
Correct.
And then they have to go back. They have to go back to Mexico for 3 months before they can come back.
Correct.
So that program kind of already exists.
Correct.
I don't know the process for applying for that. Because like I haven't helped my guys with applications. They probably have to do it from Mexico, before.
I would be fine with doing it at the border or doing it at the location that you reached, to be perfectly honest. I would prefer to do it at the border, like basically almost okay, you say you're, Manuel Rodriguez and you want to go here to work here. Okay, here you go. Here's your stamp. Here's your, tax ID number. Go. This is how long it's good for. Right. And then, like I said, if you enforce that on the demand end, the business end, right, where we go to the businesses and audit the businesses. And if you're paying off the books, massive fines to the point where it's not profitable to pay off the books. Because if you can close the demand, then the supply will take care of itself. Right. If I can't work without getting this damn permit, right, then I'm going to go get the damn permit. Right. So if I get rid of the businesses that are exploiting the system, then that's going to close a lot of those illegal doors that are encouraging people to go around the system. My understanding on the workers' permits is you're right. They do exist. I'm saying we need to make it much easier to get, much quicker process to get, right? And then we need to punish or fine the hell out of the businesses that are encouraging their employees to break the law, essentially.
See, I actually do agree with that. Like, I do agree with you on that. If there was an option for them to get it at the border, I would agree with that, but not if they're already, let's say, up in Colorado. If they're already up in Colorado and then they go for a work permit, I almost don't agree with that, because they've already crossed into our country illegally and then crossed state lines illegally as well. Whereas, which there's not like a different charge for that, but whatever. But if they apply for it at the border, yeah, sure, I would totally be okay with that. So it's not all that different from what we have now. You're just kind of looking for a slight expansion to make it easier.
Yeah, and much more enforcement on the business side of things, because like I said, it's much easier. So just from a pure enforcement side, standpoint, right? It's going to be much easier for me to go check, 100 farm fields, right, than it is for me to chase around 100,000 people that are working across the country, right? So if I try and enforce it strictly on the business end, it seems to make a lot more sense to me. I would prefer that when people come across, they register at the border. I do recognize that it's going to take a while to this is the cultural business norm of how we do things, right, on both sides of the border. So that's going to take a while to disseminate to everybody. I would be fine initially for, X period of years, like with people getting their permit in Colorado or California or wherever they are, simply because the business that's trying to do the right thing, but still needs employees, right? If, again, Manuel Rodriguez, didn't get his permit at the border and shows up to work and that company needs to hire somebody, I'm fine with them saying, hey, you need to go down to, the immigration's office in, at this address in Tranquility, California, right? Because this is where we're working, and get your permit, and then I can hire you tomorrow. Let's go. I want to give people as many ways to get legal and get on the books and pay taxes to the American economy, right, as possible.
Okay. Well, I mean, the enforcement thing definitely exists because when I got hired at my first landscape company, they actually had it was a nationwide company that had a bunch of illegal workers.
Yeah.
And ICE had just came in and basically cleaned house, and fined the company millions, if not billions of dollars,
I would have to see the millions of dollars fine, because my experience has been, and I went to school in New Mexico, right? My experience has been, and what I have read is generally when Immigrations and Customs Enforcement comes in to enforce immigration laws, the company usually doesn't end up with huge fines, and certainly not to the extent where it wasn't profitable in the first place, right? So the people, the individual employees, yeah, they end up getting locked up, deported, sent back to wherever they came from. And then like, I don't know, a month later, half the time the same people seem to be back, right? But the company just keeps doing what it's doing, has been my experience, right? The fine is no more than a cost of doing business, right? Because they're still profitable even after paying the fine. And that's a major problem to me.
Well, so I can if I can find an article, because chances are they might have paid to have the article suppressed or whatever, you know what I mean? That it not get out. But, like, I know for a fact, like the company that I worked for, they, after all that happened, they had to go through the E-Verify, for everybody. And they did get fined a hefty amount of money. And then I know this of another local company in my area as well, where the government came in and basically threatened that you're not going to get any government contract from here on out. If you get caught one more time, and this company has a lot of government contracts, so, there is enforcement is kind of what I'm trying to say. I would argue it might not be as widespread.
Yeah, that was going to be my key. It's not widespread. It's typically like, in my experience, like somebody reports on the company, not like people just going around checking the companies, right? We seem to focus a lot of our enforcement like on the border, right? We're going to put all these guards on the border. We're going to build a fucking wall. We're going to put drones in the sky. I've seen people advocate for like armed drones that could stop the invaders type shit. I know you're not that guy, but that's the kind of stuff I've seen, right? And it's just like, holy shit, why don't we just like, hire some inspectors to go business to business and like, check people off of a list with a computer. I mean, this does not seem that difficult, especially if we provide them with an extremely, easy way to hire migrant labor, right? Because you and I've both agreed that migrant labor exists and has throughout our history. But anyway, I'm going to let you get in the last word, and then I'm going to wrap up because I'm already an hour overdue. So I've got a significant other and a kid that are more than ready for my attention.
Sorry, man. I always make your shows go a little bit longer.
No, it's greatly appreciated, man. I love talking to you.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to the topic next week. If we end up getting into the BLM stuff, which is cool. I was trying to keep us on topic earlier.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, but no, I appreciate you having me on, man, and I hope you have a good one.
You as well. Thank you for calling in, and you are more than welcome, like I said, ever back on this show. I greatly appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Have a good one, man.
You as well. All right, everybody. That was Hardwoodensock. That's his second call in, I believe it is. As always, a great guest. I greatly appreciate you calling in again. That is going to wrap it up for us today. The call will be available on YouTube probably Monday, Tuesday, somewhere in there. And then the episode itself will be available probably tomorrow on YouTube. You can also go to theleftspeaks.com. And then, of course, the donation link will be up and available until next week's show, at which point I will provide a receipt next week for the donations that were provided to rescue.org. Again, to help the kids once they get out of these camps with temporary food, temporary shelter, and getting in touch with family that may be in the United States. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. I greatly appreciate it. I'm going to give everybody about 5 minutes of, the show shutting down music in case you want to hit that donation link. Thank you so much, everybody, and I will see you next week.